film sessions with the team, or with Cade Klubnik specifically. I guess how are those film sessions with Cade? How, like, what do you kind of point out specifically when you're reviewing game tape after games?
I mean, just how he played the game. I mean, what was his command of the offense? His decision making. How was he in the pocket? How did he see the field? I mean, every play he's got decisions to make. How did he carry out his fakes? How hard did he compete? How did he lead? I mean, how did he respond to things in the situations in the game? I mean, there's all kind of things you look at when you're grading the tape. From fundamental technical stuff to the mental side, the decision making. So that's how we grade them.
I guess is this a scale to like 0 to 100 for each player, or is it just position?
Yeah, we give them a grade. We give them a numerical grade, and we have a winning performance at every grade. It's different, like a D tackle. His a winning grade at D tackle is 75%. That's a winning grade. We don't ask them to be perfect, but we need consistent. So we have a winning standard at every position. All right, that's just at some positions it's 85. And up. So again, we don't expect guys to be perfect, but we need consistency in their performance. So yeah, we have a grade, we have a fundamental grade, a technical grade, we have an overall grade that we give them week in and week out, and you're looking for consistent performers. Not guys that are here and here and here and here, and that's why you do that. You try to create accountability. That's how you grow. You're not going to grow if you don't have accountability. You just stay the same, so we have a lot of accountability within our coaching staff and how we handle ourselves as coaches and critique ourselves but also with the players. And they want that feedback, great competitor, they want it. Most of the time they already know before they come in here, and then there's other times where they want to debate you and like, no. But that's how it's coaching. So you just, because they want, it's important to them. They all want to grade a winner. And when they don't, they're disappointed. And okay, well, here's why. Here's what happened. So, man, let's learn from it, and let's keep getting better. And you see that, Cade's a perfect example of that. From where he was last year to this year, grading wise, it's night and day.
What about his instincts, sort of short area running? I think one of his big runs the other night was him cutting back.
Yeah, he's rushed 185 yards in the last 4 games, I think. I know we had some sacks in the Georgia game, I guess, that took some yards, but he's rushed for 185 yards in 4 games, and that's more than he rushed all last year. So, he's just the game has slowed down. He just plays at a different pace now than what he was as a first-year starter. And again, you saw it the latter part of last year, starting to take a step in that direction, but now he's just very confident. He sees the field well. He's very confident in making any throw that he needs to make. And the best thing is, bad plays don't mess with him. They don't affect him. He's gonna have some bad plays, but he comes back, he sees it, and he corrects it. But his ability, his awareness in running the ball, and honestly, if you watch this game from last year, we were so sloppy in the first half. We were incredibly sloppy, and it was a slow start. But in second half we rushed for 167 yards, but he had some big plays with his legs off of some scrambles versus some of their coverage and things that they do. It was just trying to get that to become natural for him was a little bit of a process. And I think just kind of going through and playing, getting experience. And that's the area he's really, really grown. He's just much more confident. Much more savvy running the ball. And he's, again, just, like the one the other night. He just saw the coverage. That's what you hate as a defensive guy, right? When you're playing, you got them all covered, you're playing man coverage, and, man, they don't contain the quarterback. Right, we had that happen to us too. Right, on 4th and 9, quarterback gets a first down. That's how they got another touchdown. We should have been off. We missed a tackle. We're off the field right there. But that's a killer when your quarterback will do that. The best out there right now is probably Mahomes, right? Him and Lamar, those guys will make you pay. And they're two different type guys, right? I don't think you think of Mahomes as a guy that can fly, but he plays fast. He runs fast on game day, and he knows how to use his legs. He knows how to move the chains, and he knows how to make the defense pay. And again, I think when a quarterback can take that next step in really understanding, opportunity with their legs, that's a real benefit to you offensively. And Cade's still got a ways to go. He's improving every week. He's not perfect. There's things every week that, we coach him like, hey, man, guy, you should have just really sat in here right here. That thing's coming open, that you coach him on, and he sees it. But really proud of that aspect of his game. He's already surpassed the whole year. So that just shows his growth.
What have you seen from the wide receiver blocking, and just how is that buy-in continue to grow from that standpoint?
Well, if you look at our explosive runs this year compared to last year, heck, we're probably have matched that. A lot of that is guys on the second level. Whether it's running man coverage off, whether it's making some key blocks downfield, covering guys up, extra efforts. That's how you get explosives in the run game, and we've had a bunch of those. So they're doing a good job. I mean, not perfect, but we've made a huge jump this year. Much more experienced, much better understanding of that aspect of it, and then good leadership. Guys have taken ownership of that, and so just got to continue to push and make them want to be complete players. That's what I always say, coaching receivers forever. You should impact the game without the ball. Great receivers impact the game without the ball. That's just good receivers impact the game, with the ball. Great ones impact the game without the ball. And I think that's important for guys to buy into that. So it's important. You have 3 catches and 2 touchdowns, and everybody's patting you on the back, but you played 30 plays, and the other 27, you come in on Sunday and you didn't grade a winner. Everybody's telling you how great you are, but you didn't grade a winner. To me, that's not a complete player. That's asking more of your team than you're willing to give. And so I think you got to coach those things hard, and we do that.
Sammy Brown hasn't played as much the last 3 games. Is that just a matter of who's above them and how well they're playing at linebacker?
Yeah. I mean, he played a lot in the Stanford game. He didn't get in there quite as much the other night. We put him in there, and he had a big bust, gave up a huge play, and so that probably didn't help him. So you got to do your job, know what to do when we put you in there. But yeah, we're not in a hurry to get Barrett and Woodaz off the field. I know y'all are, but Sammy will be just fine. He's coming at a good, healthy pace, and he'll be ready when we need him, and has done a great job.
What about just the personnel decisions that have to be made when you're going against big and you're trying to decide whether do we just leave our nickel out there or go 3 linebackers?
We try to match that. We try to match that. When we get, we've got our base personnel. Sammy starts in our base personnel, and Wade will bump out and play our Big Sam, big nickel. But it just depends on style of play and then what do they do? Who are those people? What do they do out of those sets? That's all based on your game plan, your film study, and all that stuff. But yeah, we're not gonna ask little people to take on big people if it's that style of play. So that's just part of the game.
For that nickel position, especially when Sherrod and Shelton are in there, can you just give some insight into the difficulty of playing that position? Because one play you could be blitzing or in run support, and the next you could be trying to cover downfield 30 yards, just all the different things you have to do.
Yeah, and it just comes with it. That's where the game is, You've got to have guys that are physical in the run game because, you got to be able to support that, but you got to have guys that are athletic enough to cover. And those guys, everybody's always looking for guys like that, and Shelton brings a lot of toughness. I mean, he's a corner, but he's got good coverage skills and he's a tough kid. And then Koval, Koval's a safety by trade, but he can run, and he's a hitter. He's physical, and so they both bring really good attributes to that position. You got to be a good athlete there, and yeah, I mean, we ask them to do everything. We ask them to fit into the run game. We ask them to play man to man. We ask them to play half field. We ask them to play the flat. We ask them to carry seams. We ask them to do a little bit of everything. But that's all. That's just. I mean, it's not stuff they can't do. It just comes with the position. We ask a lot of everybody at every position. And if you want to, because if you just put a big guy out there, well, now you limit yourself in coverage. You become a little more predictable in what you can do. Because you're not going to have Woodaz cover Antonio Williams in the slot. So they know that, and when they know that, that makes you a little more predictable. So when you have true nickel guys out there, you can have a little bit more disguise in what you do, from a coverage standpoint, schematically, and that's why mostly most teams you see a lot, mostly 11 personnel, and so if you see a team that's going to play with a lot of 12 personnel, well, you're going to match that most of the time, depending on what they do out of it. A lot of times people getting 12 personnel just throwing the ball, so it depends on what they do as well.
Physically, you don't see a lot of cornerbacks that look like Ashton Hampton. I believe he just played the most career snaps he's played in his short career against Florida State. What have you seen from his development that's allowed him to make such an impact right away?
Yeah, he didn't get here until the summer, but he's what we thought he would be. I mean, he's very similar to Jaden Lucas, big, long, hard to find guys like that. I mean, they're both like when you walk up on J. Lou, you walk up on Ashton, you go, whoa, these are corners. I mean, they're just impressive. But he's just his dad's a college head coach at Arkansas Pine Bluff. He's a coach's kid. He just has a lot of instincts for the game. He's played on both sides of the ball. He's done a lot. He's a really good athlete, good basketball player. He played for Charlie Ward, by the way. That was his basketball coach. But just a very conscientious kid. He's gifted. God's gifted him. He's not a normal freshman when it comes to his physical stature. He's way ahead. Physically he looks like a senior. Mentally he's not. But he's really closed that gap, from the time he got here this summer, going through camp. We saw pretty quick, like, this kid's going to help us. I mean, he's just it's not too big for him. He's not overwhelmed. He's got a lot of confidence, and again, I think that comes from just he's got a lot of knowledge. He understands the game. So still a work in progress, but man, we're really glad we got him. And he's a kid that's separated himself a little bit. And then Strozier's another guy that was out last year, but he's making some progress. And he's not as physically developed as J. Lou and Ashton, but eventually he will be. I mean, he's got the frame, and he just needs to continue to develop physically a little bit. But I'm excited about him. And then Shelton's a guy that hasn't had as much. We got to get him some. We got to keep him going as he practices every day, and he's played a little bit of corner, but we got to keep him going as well because, if you had an injury or something, I mean, he's got to be able to go and get that job done for us. So we got a good group.
Any questions for Coach virtually? Anybody else in the room?
With so much receiver depth, where do you think Myson Kelly can fit in or will fit in?
He's just right now backup slot. I mean, he's just got to keep preparing. I mean, he's just not. He's a really good football player, and his time will come for sure. He got some older guys in front of him, and he's a redshirt freshman. Really hurt him not being able to play last year. Because there was a couple, 2 or 3 times he was gonna go be the guy and was hurt, so had to have surgery and so he's still developing. A guy we got a lot of confidence in, but he just hadn't had much opportunity yet. But he will. I mean, he's a redshirt freshman, got it all in front of him, and Jaheim Lawson didn't play either as a redshirt or a redshirt freshman, and then this year he's a redshirt sophomore, and all y'all are asking me about Jaheim Lawson, you know, and that's because he just kept putting the work in. And Tink will be the same way. If he'll stay the course, keep putting the work in, you'll look up and he's gonna make a lot of plays for us.
What special teams units is he working on?
He's starting on punt return, and he's back up on punt. He's back up on kickoff. You know, so he's in the mix on the two deep, but just waiting for an opportunity.
You bring up Jaheim.
One ball.
Bring up Jaheim Lawson. You wanted to be a basketball player at first.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I know you,
He and Shaq.
Yeah, I know you like multi-sport athletes. How often do you run across the football?
I
player?
love multi-sport athletes.
That wants to be a basketball player.
Yeah, I love the basketball players, man, especially receivers and tight ends, and even linemen that play basketball. Man, there's a lot of carryover with that, a lot. I've had some great basketball players that were very kind of average receivers, honestly, that turned out to be great wideouts. Mike Williams. You know, when I first watched Mike, he runs a slant and a go route, and he just jumps over everybody. You know, I watched Nuke Hopkins grow up his whole life. I mean, but man, Nuke was a hooper, and he was a hooper. That's you know, football. Yeah, I'll go play football, but he hooped year round all the time, and you know, eventually he decided, you know what, I might want to do this football thing, and that's how Shaq was. And that's how Jaheim was. I remember very clearly Jaheim wasn't going to play football. He was going to quit. And I told him, I said, no, you're not quitting. It was like middle school, like 7th grade or something. I'm like, have you lost your mind? I was like, you're going to be like 6'3". You better be Steph Curry, and you're not. So you better get your butt out on that football field and and then he was going to be a receiver. He was going to play wideout. And I remember that. And I'm like, yeah, enjoy this. You better get over there and get your hand in the dirt. And he didn't want to play DN. I'm not going to be a DN. I'm going to be a receiver. I'm going to be a tight end. I'm like, no, he's a DN. But he's going to be he finally bought into it. Shaq was the same way. You know, same way. He's going to be a hooper. Shaq was a beast on the basketball court. Woo! I mean, like beast. Rip it down and just really, really good player. But same thing, he finally realized, you know what, I better get serious about football. That might be my best path. And it's worked out good for him. You know, but they're similar in that they obviously Jaheim's had his brother. He's had his brother to really learn from, and that's benefited him for sure. But they're both high motor guys, tough, physical. They both have heavy hands. Shaq was that way. You know, they both play a little bigger than they are. But yeah, and they both thought they were going to be, you know, playing in the NBA. So we'll see. But I love Jaheim. He's really grown up, matured, and he's bought into what he needs to do as a young man, what he needs to do as a football player, as a student, and he's just, you know, blossoming, hard worker. And you got a little bit of talent, and you got a whole lot of work ethic. Good stuff happens.
Got time for one more for Coach, if anybody has one.
Coach, the 4-game redshirt rule, now that it doesn't carry to postseason, how do you feel like that's going to benefit your ball club? I mean, this will be game 6, so you'll have
yeah, it was the same. It was the same last year. You know, it actually 2 years ago we used it. We used it for Cole Turner. You know, we played. I think we held his games and played him right there at the end. But last year they did away with the postseason. You know, so you can have all the postseason. So that was the, I guess, first year of the 4 plus the postseason. So I think it's great. I mean, it's common sense because you have so many kids that leave. You know, I mean, you can't even, and it's going to be even worse when they cut the roster to 105. I mean, that's what's going to happen. We'll be revisiting that in a few years. You can bookmark that. We'll definitely be revisiting that because you're going to have a lot of teams that aren't going to have kids to play. They don't have a center. They're not going to have this isn't basketball where you just put a guy over there and say, all right, we're going little. You know, you can't put a corner at nose guard. You can't take your receiver and say you're playing center this week. It doesn't work that way in football. So, you know, that's helped because It allows you to have more personnel with the portal and guys leaving because, all these kids, they want to get gone so they can get somewhere in January, and you got games to play. I mean, every Final Four team had kids opt out last year. So, your playoff teams, your bowl teams, and so you want to play these games, but now your roster is really, really down. And again, it's not about just having people. You got to have position players. It's complicated. You don't just learn a scheme. You don't just, take a guy at linebacker and say, all right, you're the running back this week. I mean, you can, but you're going to have like 2 plays. So it's, that part's good because it allows, kids to be able to play in the postseason and not count against their red shirt. So we got a few guys that we're trying to kind of manage and maybe hold to the latter part. And then we've got some that we'll just go ahead and play them, as the games happen, organically, with their 4. But we keep up with it because we want to try to be very tactical when it comes to, using those games. But I love it. I mean, it's great. I mean, the unintended consequences, you have guys that opt out, after 4 games. It's good, but there's always unintended consequences. And the intent of that rule was to allow kids to play, get some experience, and not count against their red shirt. And then the intent was to have guys play in the postseason as well. That came about because of all the kids leaving and not having to waste a guy's year. But the unintended consequence is you got guys that'll redshirt themselves and play 4 games and leave. But there's good and bad with everything. Part of it.
Thank you,
Okay,
Coach.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Join momentarily.